Welcome to the Veterinary Marketing Podcast, where it's all about how to attract, engage, and retain clients to your veterinary practice using digital marketing. My name is Brandon Brashears, and in today's episode, we have a special guest. I think it is the second time, but I think it might be the third time that we have Cheyanne Flerx on the podcast. If you're not familiar with Cheyanne, she's been in the veterinary social media and marketing space for quite a while. Actually, over the last 7 years, she's been dedicated to helping veterinary practices get better at social media marketing. She's been working on a really cool new product and project with Rhonda Bell, who's a CVPM, called Vet Vibes Marketing. And in today's episode, we are going to dive into what's working in social media today, what you should be doing, what you shouldn't be doing, and how you can get more out of it. I think that there's been so many changes when it comes to social media over the past few years, so it's great to catch up with Cheyanne and see what she thinks is working effectively for veterinary practice marketing. Before we jump into today's episode, we have a couple of sponsors, and here they are. Are you looking to get better SEO ranking for your veterinary practice? Probably everyone I know that runs a veterinary hospital would be benefited from having better local SEO. And that's why I want to give you some free tools from one of today's sponsors. It is whitespark.ca. If you go to veterinarymarketingpodcast.com/SEO, that's veterinarymarketingpodcast.com/SEO, you can sign up to get a free account to give you some amazing SEO tools. Whitespark gives you everything that you need for better local SEO. If you haven't heard the episode I did with Darren Shaw, be sure to go back and look at it. He is the founder and owner of this company. It is fantastic. They have Google Business Profile Management, local rank tracking, local citation finder, reputation builder. They even have professional SEO services if that's something that you're looking for. So go to veterinarymarketingpodcast.com/SEO to check out Whitespark and the free tools that they have available for you. You won't be disappointed. They're really cool. Let me know what you think too. If you need help with any of that, please don't hesitate to reach out. But again, veterinarymarketingpodcast.com/SEO. Have you ever said to yourself, I wish I knew where these clients were coming from? If you've ever been wondering, what is actually driving conversions in your practice, then I have something that I think will be great for you, and that is CallRail. CallRail is a fantastic tool that allows you to measure and see where your conversions are coming from and which of the calls and call sources are driving clients into your practice. CallRail makes it really simple to not only see where your calls are coming from, but the AI tools that they have that track and record the conversation so that you can assign outcomes to the calls is amazing. I highly suggest all of the clients that I have use CallRail. And if you've ever wondered where are my clients coming from, you can try CallRail out for 2 weeks for free. If you go to veterinarymarketingpodcast.com/CallRail, you'll be able to try CallRail for yourself and finally know where your clients are coming from. So without further ado, here is my interview with Cheyanne. Thank you so much for jumping on the podcast with us, Cheyanne. I really appreciate it. I'm very excited to talk to you. And we were just talking before we got started. I think it's very timely to talk about social because there's been so many changes since we last spoke. And so for those who don't know you, can you just give a quick introduction about yourself and how you got started in veterinary marketing?
Yeah, so I am actually a former veterinary assistant. I started my journey with VetMed in 2015. And basically, from day one, they asked me to help with the Facebook page because I'm a younger millennial. So they're like, well, you know about Facebook, right? So why not? So I did that for the practice, and I fell in love with just whole side of social media and how it could generate clients and really connect with clients on a deeper level, honestly. So from there, I really just got really nerdy about it, did research on how I could market the practice better. And long story from there, I just fell in love with marketing and made it my whole thing. It's my business now, and I help other veterinary hospitals learn how to use social media for their practices.
Very cool. And you have a podcast too, which is awesome. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. But you've been, I think, one of the most consistent voices in VetMed as far as helping people to understand what to do, how to do it, and things like that. So it's super helpful. And a lot has changed now. And we were just talking about how veterinary medicine is typically kind of behind the ball when it comes to veterinary marketing in general. What do you
Yeah.
think is the biggest changes that social has seen that veterinary medicine is kind of falling short on?
I think it's really the change of how people are consuming social media and their relationship with social media overall. And knowing how the everyday pet owner is using social media is a really huge hint into how we as marketers in the hospital can really communicate with those pet owners. Because I know my social media habits and consumption of social media has changed, even really just within the last couple of years. Of course, I work in marketing. I work on social media every day, so I get fatigued easily by it, but that doesn't mean our pet owners aren't fatigued by it as well with everything that's been in the news, everything just going on in the world. It gets tiresome.
Definitely. I feel the same. Like sometimes I just get tired of social and I don't go on Facebook except to just run ads basically. So
Yeah, exactly.
I feel that.
Yeah.
So what do you think prompted this change in social consumption in general? And what do you kind of see as the biggest changes that are happening?
That's a really good question. I think there's a few different factors. I think really the pandemic changed a lot of our habits overall, and understandably so. But I think when we resort to our phones all the time, um, everybody has become very much aware of their own mental health these days. And
Mm-hmm.
there's studies behind it that shows that, being on your phone all the time, being on social media just does change your chemistry in your brain. And so,
Yep.
I think a lot of people have developed this better understanding of how their relationship with their phone or with social media has a huge impact on their health. So I think a lot of people are taking more responsibility of that and doing more to improve their health in that way.
But I totally agree. And I think that people have really changed the way that they're using social in general. And at least from my perspective, I'd love to get your take on it. I talked to JMO from Vayner Media about
Oh,
this,
yeah.
but it seems like TikTok was the biggest kind of disruptor across all
Mhm.
social channels. And so social seems to be chasing what TikTok has when it comes to engagement, user
Yes,
growth, and things like
100%.
that.
Yeah,
And
that's a great point.
with that, what are the biggest changes that you think veterinary practices should be doing that maybe they aren't? And what does that mean for you? I'd be interested to get your take on that.
Yeah, I think it's really worth taking a step back and saying, okay, what am I currently posting on my hospital page compared to what the rest of the world is posting right now? Not saying, oh, I have to do this because everyone else is doing it, but just saying, okay, what is currently connecting with other people? What is currently connecting with pet owners? And how can I use that energy, that direction, and apply it to my hospital? Because I know it's easy for us to go look at the list of holidays and the social media calendar and be like, oh, okay, we got to do National Hug Your Puppy Day. We got to do National Hairball Awareness Day and use that as a checklist. But I think we just get stuck in this rut of like, okay, I have to post about this fact, share this, but we're always sharing either photos or those Canva graphic designs, which those are great, and I'm a huge believer in those still. But I think it'd be worth considering the fact that it's time for us to take on video and use that as a tool to connect with our pet owners in a completely different way, because that taps into that human connection, that emotional side of things that static images or photos just can't accomplish in the same way.
Definitely. I totally agree. I think that the landscape for content, yeah, I don't think that practices are approaching it kind of in the way that they should from the general amount of practices that I see. And not, there's obviously outliers. I'm thinking of like
Yeah.
All Star Veterinary Clinic. Have you ever seen their content on Instagram?
No, I need to check them out.
But I think they're on TikTok too, mostly. They're
Okay.
really good with, and I would love to get them on the podcast if I could ever talk to them. But they have approached it like a full time content production job too.
Yeah.
And that's really what you're competing against. You're not competing against other practices, and it's not like if I feel like most practices kind of treat it kind of like email, like it's just an email broadcast that they're pushing out,
Yeah.
and it's not. It lacks so much of the social component uh, that exists on all of these platforms now. Um,
Yeah.
And one of the kind of weird things that I see is that it's more about niche communities more so than it is about pages and followers.
Yes.
And
Yes.
like, admittedly, I'm terrible at Instagram, right? So, and Instagram seems like probably the hardest platform. Well, at least in my mind today, just
Yeah.
because I can't get any traction there based on the content that I'm producing, which
Yeah.
is definitely a weakness. But I'm sure lots of people feel frustration with that.
Yeah.
Do you think that Instagram is more follower based, or do you think it's more niche based these days? And what are you seeing
Yeah.
there?
So I'm seeing a general shift in content in general outside of social media and in social media that people are really focusing on the community and who they're attracting, and not so much the numbers or the vanity metrics we call it in social media marketing. It's focusing less on the followers, the likes, and the comments. It's more so, how can I create content that will speak and resonate to who I'm creating it for? And it's really approaching it more so of a service that you're providing to someone, and not so much of a service that you're charging for that, but it's more so, how can I deliver something that's valuable to that person who's consuming that content, and really presenting what you do as a business, which I think this is something that a lot of hospitals need to unlock. Is, I have a solution to a problem a pet owner is having, and I would love to be able to provide that solution to you as a pet owner. So how can we work together so we can solve that problem your pet is having, or prevent that problem that your pet could potentially encounter?
That that makes total sense. Now, when I'm thinking about ads in general, I'm thinking about typically how do we drive the most return on investment? Like, what's the
Yeah.
best return on investment? And usually, right, there's different things that we can target, but usually that's targeting people who are actively out there looking. When it comes to social, in your opinion, for practices, is there something that is like that, where there's a content type, or um, I guess, what are your thoughts on that? Is there something that typically practices aren't doing that's going to drive more return for them that you can think of that would be something that they should start doing?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And I think what I'm about to say might scare a little bit of people, because it takes a lot more time to produce if you don't have the
Mm-hmm.
good systems in place or the creativity behind it. But I really believe, and I have seen this work for other hospitals that are actively doing it, is producing reels and doing short form videos that will actually put your face on the camera. And I know that scares a lot of veterinary professionals, especially if they just come to the hospital with a messy bun and they're just, coming real quick. And I definitely have some thoughts on that. But overall, it really cuts down that stranger danger, so to speak, when people are coming to the vet for the first time. They're like, oh, okay, I don't know what to expect. So the pet's picking up on that stress. So if they can see your face, I really believe the short form videos are going to be great. And there's lots of ways we can make it easy for people in the hospital, and even just in the hospital, to capture that quick video and create content that way. Another thing that personally that I love about Instagram for hospitals is those carousel posts, or there's multiple images
Mm-hmm.
that we can have in one post. There's a lot of engagement with those. But overall, I think what the key factor here is, and it doesn't necessarily depend on the type of content. Like, yes, there's ways that we can uplevel our content, but it's really focusing on how we can engage with pet owners in the comments. Because I see a lot of hospitals that will post and ghost, so to speak, or will just post a post and not even comment back and say, hey, thanks for commenting, or, ask, just really be social on social media. They're just going through the motions, I feel.
That's a good point. Absolutely. I've seen personally just a ton more benefit from posting my face too, right? Where
Yeah.
I used to not record video, but personally I've seen that, and I didn't want to, and I still don't
Right,
like
right.
to, but like, I just have to. It's part of being in business now. So just,
Yeah,
get over yourself and just post it. Who cares what it looks like? So
exactly. And if
I
and
feel
yeah.
that, and just to let everybody know, I've been making the podcast for 10 years. I'm still nervous to be like on camera, and it's okay. You just get over it.
Yeah, exactly. It just takes practice. It's a muscle memory to really overcome, and it's a huge mindset shift, right? Like, I'm a huge introvert. Like working from home is like, yay, I don't have to be on camera all the time. But at the same time,
Yeah.
I have to be on camera because people can't see my face. And yeah, I don't think I'm a criminal, but or look creepy, or I practice good morals in my business and want to provide a good service for my clients. But at the same time, you know, I could be anyone, right? Like if I'm just typing away a message, if I'm just talking to you through a DM or a text message, you don't really know who I am. So a lot of people
Hmm.
are savvier nowadays and a little less trusting for anyone who's they're just talking to on the internet, because there's AI, there's lots of other things that could come into factor. So by having this kind of conversation on camera, people can see our faces, right? Like be like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
they're a real person, you know? So yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, people can trust it for now, right? I think like the
Mhm.
level of AI that's coming out is going to be really, really strange.
Yeah.
Have you seen a reduction in? Do you think any AI tools have really just reduced the effectiveness of organic social, or do you not really seeing that right now?
I'm not really seeing that. I think it's more so what's changing is people are relying on AI to create the content, and then they're not
Hmm.
really enhancing it or adapting it or editing it to fit their voice or to fit their branding or their voice. And so it's like,
Yeah.
okay, now we're seeing the same thing again and again, or people are like, that's not your voice. That's not how you normally write, how you come, how you show up. And so people are like sniffing it out and be like, oh, okay, that's not cool anymore.
Yeah, I agree. I think and you can tell. I mean, immediately the pause emoji as the first. Like, it's interesting. There's the patterns of seeing
Yes.
AI posts constantly, but I do think that having your own voice is just incredibly important. I do use AI a bunch. I have an assistant who edits this down. Her name's Janelle, and she uses AI all the time, so it makes it easy. I think it depends on how you're using it. But what's
Absolutely.
your take on AI? Do you think it's something that should be used like regularly or not that much, or what's your take on that?
I think even though it's scary and I'm still getting used to the idea of AI and I'm like a huge tech nerd, um, I
Hmm.
think there's pros and cons to everything, right? That's just the nature of life, good and bad. But for me, I think if we don't learn how to use AI wisely, then we're going to be behind the ball game. And we're not going to be able to give ourselves that break to complete the things that we actually need to complete versus the little busy work that AI can help us with. Like, I mean, the other day I was trying to come up with post ideas. Like, that's what I'm known for. I come up with social media post ideas and I create content for other people, but I needed that support. So,
Hmm.
I use ClickUp for my project management tool, and they have their own AI. So I typed in a couple of prompts in there and it spit out 20 ideas for me. I picked out a few ideas that I wanted and I used that as my starting point, but I use that to put on my own creative spin, put it in my own voice or for the voice for the hospital I was creating it for. And, that reduced my 2 hours of hitting my head against the wall, um,
Yeah.
and I was able to create a great post for them without any additional heartache. It worked
Yeah,
well for me.
definitely. Yeah, absolutely. That's one thing. And I would like to get your take on this, but
Yeah.
a lot of people that are professional content producers, like specifically, I've heard and researched a lot about Mr. Beast, who's the most popular
Oh yeah.
YouTuber on the internet. He talks about the importance of having a really strong idea that you're using, and
Mhm.
the difference between a good idea and a great idea is exponentially better. But
Yeah.
how much time do you suggest that people put into just the planning phase of content creation and doing hooks versus just creating more content and kind of pushing it out there
Yeah.
in general? What's your rules on those types of things?
So I'm a huge proponent for planning. Like, to me, that
Hmm.
immediately cuts out half of the busy work that a lot of, at least veterinary hospitals, I feel spend on it. Because if they're just posting in the moment or last minute, or they're like, oh crap, it's already 7 o'clock at night and I haven't posted, it relieves that stress as well. So when we take that moment to plan, I feel like that is the biggest part of the whole process of social media that I invest the most in, because that gives me a chance to pause and reflect. And it also helps me not to just post out anything, right? I think gone are the days where we could just post anything just for the sake of posting and it be worthwhile for our ROI. I think we need to take the time to be savvier and really understand who we're posting it for, right? Like, you know, if you're a cat only practice, that makes it a lot easier because you're posting for cat owners. And we both know that they are a little bit of a different audience than a dog owner or, you know, exotics pet owner, right?
For sure. Yeah.
So it's important to really understand who we're posting for. And that doesn't just mean, okay, you know, they're older clientele with a couple of cats and a few dogs, they're retired, but it's really understanding their relationship with their pet and creating content that speaks to that and how that problem that you're trying to meet, that provides the solution that you
so
have.
how that solves that. So quick question following up with that. So do you think that Instagram is still a super effective for hyperlocal, or do you think that they're going more niche? Well, do you see anybody that's using TikTok for hyperlocal? And do you think that, because my kind of thesis right now is that TikTok seems to be driving most of the growth and everybody's trying to copy them, you know, especially YouTube Shorts is being heavily pushed. YouTube isn't a great platform for local. And so I think that Instagram had a lot more focus on local and also who you're following and who your friends are following. But do you think that that's changed so that it's more like TikTok, where it's just more about the content that you're interested in? So it's more of a content platform rather than like a relational platform, like Facebook would be, I'd say, far more purely relational.
Yeah.
You know, what do you think about that?
Yeah, so it's really interesting because I've been watching Instagram as a whole for the last few years, and I've really tried to understand it and how it's different from Facebook, because a lot of vet hospitals are comfortable with Facebook. They know Facebook, and that's where their, so to speak, bread and butter is from with, you know, trying to get engagement. But Instagram, I know they got a lot of backlash for trying to be too much like TikTok in the recent years, right? And Meta is just known for being a copycat of TikTok. But
definitely,
the thing is with Instagram, I'm noticing is that, so I'm based in Washington State, and I like to go visit a lot of this stuff in Seattle or in the local areas in my state, right? So what Instagram does know about me is that in the same way as TikTok, they will serve me things that I like, things along those same lines, like plants. On my Instagram page, you'll see a lot of indoor plants. As you can see, maybe behind me, I'm a huge indoor plant nerd. So they'll provide me with content for that. But one thing that I didn't ask them to do, which maybe it's because I looked it up a couple times, but they keep providing me with reels in particular that show off local areas that are on food or on local hikes and really just local attractions. Like seriously, like stuff that's just in Tacoma, which is about 45 minutes away from where I live, or they started just showing me stuff in Portland because I was there recently. And I am suspecting, this could just be because of how I have my Instagram set up though, is that they were able to see that I was in Portland just a few weeks ago, and they're now showing me content based upon that. I think it's also, we're able to tag locations on Instagram posts if we post something there. So I think there's opportunities for us to get a lot more local traffic, because the search engine on Instagram has definitely switched over to SEO and that fact. So I think we can get a lot savvier with Instagram and use it to get those new clients. But again, we have to set up and plan ahead for how we want to do that. But ultimately, I would love to see more practices on Instagram for that fact, or even just give it a try with some reels on Facebook and just get a little bit messy with that. But long story short, yes, I think Instagram is starting to pick up some local traffic for sure. And it's still a great platform to connect with people if you know how to go about it the right way. There's some changes recently that we could talk about if you want, that I think kind of help hold hospitals back from getting that engagement and that connection.
That makes total sense. And do you see organically, is it incredibly difficult, or how mature is it on on Instagram to get organic distribution. So usually the
Yeah.
more mature platform, the more difficult it is. But what are you seeing for veterinary practices right now?
Yeah. So what I'm seeing a lot of traction as far as like engagement wise, I'm definitely there. Now I will say that there's currently a social media recession, so to speak, where just all the engagement is down because there's just so much inventory or posts content being pushed on the platform now in general, just everywhere, that
Yeah.
we as consumers just can't see everything possible without scrolling on it for hours and hours and hours, right? Um,
Yeah.
but going back to organic content and traffic, yes, for hospitals and especially just in pages in general, what I'm seeing a shift in is that when back in the day, we used to say, hey, go to my link in bio for more information or to grab the link for this, whatever. Now,
Yeah.
what we're seeing at the time of this recording, people will say, comment below and I'll send you the link to XYZ. And people will actually comment, which brings up the organic engagement, and you get to send that link to people in a DM or a direct message.
Mm-hmm.
So you're building that engagement and you're opening that door for more conversation to get that resource or tool, whatever you're providing, and a chance for you to follow up with that person. So if you do it right or you go about it with more intention, kind of going with what works right now, you can get more engagement that way.
That makes sense. Do you think that from a content standpoint within Instagram, is there different types of content for like followers versus non-followers? So, for example, do you think that stories should be something that you're just constantly using to get in front of people that are following you? And then, so that's, like different intent versus reels, which is different than like static photo posts or carousel posts. What's your thoughts on those types of things?
Yeah, it really depends on your audience. And I think that's even more so important for hospitals to understand what that is. So if you have younger audience on there, so Gen Z, I guess we can say Gen Z now because they're old enough to have pets and be responsible for themselves, which
Definitely.
is just weird to me. But excuse me. But yeah, so we want to be focusing on content that we know that they will want to consume. So reels maybe is something more up their alley, or carousel posts for Instagram. But
Yeah.
for
Mm-hmm.
the older audience, more so like the elder millennials, we like the real still, but we like photos still. We like the carousel post, and so we like a little bit more variety. But you may want to temper down the tone a little bit, depending just upon your demographics, your area, whatever that may be. But as far as like stories goes, stories play along with the algorithm to push out your feed posts a lot more. When I say feed posts, that's what shows up in your feed or in your news section there. So when you post to stories and people watch that, then your content that you've posted in your feed will pop up more because Instagram wants to serve content that they know that their users are actively looking at.
Mm-hmm.
So it plays into that whole ecosystem, so to speak, on Instagram and keep people engaged longer. But what I
Yeah.
like about stories is you can show behind the scenes a little bit more timely updates, and not have to put so much energy into putting it in the feed. So for a
Mm-hmm.
hospital, that's where I would share, okay, we're closing early today, or we have these changes in something, and not put it in the feed post, because when you go back to your Instagram page, you get to see all those posts in a different way than you can on Facebook. And it gives people
Yeah.
this wide bird's eye view of everything. And so I was actually looking at a hospital page the other day. All their posts were about them closing, or they had a staff meeting, they were closing early, or changes and things. And that gave me the wrong impression of, oh, are they actually open? Like, I knew they were open,
Yeah.
but it was like, oh, this is all you post about? Oh.
Constantly closed, their phones are down, or exactly. Yeah. I've
Yeah.
seen those
And
too. So
yeah,
doesn't need to be
Instagram.
permanent, just lives
Yeah,
on there shortly,
exactly.
right? So stories are perfect for that.
Yeah, it's a great
Absolutely.
digital way to have a business card, honestly. Just show
Yeah,
everything you do and then have updates in your stories.
definitely. That's really smart. Um, and I was thinking about that too. I mean, if you're doing organic content on Instagram and you're going to put energy into it, I do think that having even just a tiny budget to get your targeted distribution locally, I think that's going to be the way that you can guarantee that people in your immediate area will see it, and so that you can try to do follow campaigns and build your engagement that way. But even just like $1, you probably get 1,000 views for $1 on Instagram if you're doing a follow campaign.
Yeah.
So that's kind of interesting. And I really liked your comment for details, and then you can DM direct. And are you seeing any tools? I mean, I remember ManyChat used to be a tool previously. I stopped using ManyChat because to re-engage the people on there, you have to pay, which was annoying to me. I was like, I want to build a list. I'd rather build an email or text list. But I think that there's definitely use cases for it. Are you seeing tools like that popular or not really so much?
Yeah, ManyChat is really, really big still right now. And I was actually thinking of a way how I could help vet hospitals use it better for social media. Because honestly, you could set up an automation. Like, I wouldn't recommend this all the time because I really want hospitals to be engaging with their audience personally. But in the pinch, I know everyone's busy, but you can set up an automation to actually comment for you saying, hey, link just sent to you, and have that DM sent to that person for you. And then you can go in there later and chat with them if you want to.
Yeah, definitely. They have the 24-hour rule now, which was a bummer when they implemented that. And I remember back, used to be able to do so much stuff. You could broadcast people all the time and spam them. It wasn't spam, but then Facebook said it was, so they took it away.
Yeah.
Which was a bummer, definitely. It was good times. But I think one of the biggest things that I keep seeing from practices when I'm talking to them, specifically the practices that are running ads, are they kind of are missing a direction overall. And I think you're coming up with something that's kind of cool, that's going to help. Like, most of the time when I hear people talking, they're like, well, I know I should be doing some other stuff. We should be doing short videos. We should be doing how can we get some direction and some strategy behind there? And so I wanted to talk to you about what you've got coming up, which is exciting, very timely because you're starting in April, and talk about that in general. So how can people get clarity? I think that's the biggest thing. They just don't know if they're doing the right things. They don't know what the returns are or if it's even helping. And so I'd love to hear what you think about those things and what you're coming up with.
Yeah. So honestly, that's where my love language is with social media, is coming up with that strategy for people and really getting them honed in, because there's so much noise that we could go after, or so many shiny objects that we try to go after. And I feel like a lot of veterinary professionals just get overwhelmed on top of what they're already doing in the hospital. It's like, okay, that's the last thing I want to focus on. So really just understanding, like I said, who you're trying to communicate to and who you're trying to attract in your audience. Like, I know you've talked about this before, Brandon, but making sure you understand who your dream client is, or your ideal client avatar, and really just getting down and intimate with that image of that person that you want to connect with and ultimately serve. And this could be a whole podcast episode in itself, and I've definitely got some episodes on my own podcast coming up on this topic. But just really understanding who you're posting for and getting to know what kind of things they like. But with that, I have partnered up with Rhonda Bell to provide a new membership called Vet Vibes Hub from Vet Vibes Media. And we are providing a monthly posting schedule for our members with matching Canva and caption templates, and providing a whole bunch of resources just to make it easy for you to customize templates for social media, schedule them, and be able to walk back to your patients and come back when you need to engage with your with your audience on social media. So it's really basically a done for you social media solution that you can customize and make it fit for your hospital.
That's very cool. When you talked about that with me before, I thought that was a fantastic idea, because I think people need a starting point. A lot of times, just because it's really interesting when you're in marketing and you're trying to think of things. It's different when it's your own business because you're so close to it.
Absolutely.
And so it's really weird. I mean, I'll get stuck on things all the time, and it's just like, okay, I have to pretend like I'm giving myself advice and take a step back, and then it gets easier. But there's something weird about it when I was talking to this with another client who's setting up an oncology practice. And she's like, I don't know why, but this is so hard. When I do something like set up my Google business profile, it takes like 12 times longer than it should. And it's like, I totally get it. Because it just feels different when it's your own business. So I think that done for you type of here's what you can customize is really cool and very needed. So how can people go and learn more about this?
Yeah, so people can go visit vetvibesmedia.com/membership, and they can get all the details on how they can get those templates delivered straight through their inbox and pick the plan that works best for their budget.
Very cool. It's super affordable. And I think the last thing that I wanted to talk to you about, which we didn't talk about yet, which I think from a paid ad standpoint, this is actually a pretty big focus, but I don't think that organic gets the love it should when it comes to frequency of reviewing results and then making adjustments. Because I think that's probably one of the biggest pieces that's missed. How often do you think people should be reviewing their posts, right? So you come up with an idea, you make it, and you post it, and I feel like most people just walk away from it at that point, right? And it's like, okay, I did it.
Yeah.
But how often do you think people should be coming back to it and looking through analytics and stuff like that?
Yeah, honestly, at least once a month. And that's where I start off before I plan for the month for my social media posts. Like, I'll look at everything that worked for the week, the 2 weeks, the month before, however long I planned for, and kind of see, okay, did that post perform the type of results that I wanted? Or did these types of posts or did this posting time generate what I wanted to produce? And if not, then I ask, okay, why not? And I don't necessarily say, oh, okay, what is wrong with me? What is wrong with the content? I feel like that's where a lot of people go. I'm guilty of that, especially if I put my heart and soul in something. But really just looking at it objectively and saying, okay. And then I have a list of things that I go through, like, okay, was it the time that I posted it at? Was it something in the caption? Was it something in the graphic or the video? Like, how can I tweak it to make it better? And then kind of take what worked for me and see if I can repeat that, or take what I see that I can improve upon and improve it. But yeah, I at least look at it once a month, start from there. And then I like looking at the numbers now, but I like looking at it weekly, seeing how things are going. But I have a little bit more time to dedicate to that. But honestly, it's 5 minutes to check on your analytics and take a couple of notes, and you have more insight than you ever had before.
I definitely agree. I think taking notes is really important. Otherwise, you have to remember and count on your memory of what worked and stuff. So I agree. Being intentional with finding insights that worked is really helpful, at least from the ads perspective. For sure. 100%. So I'm sure there's overlap there with social. Well, the last question, what is your biggest pet peeve that you see right now with veterinary marketing, social media that you wish you could take away?
Oh, there's so many that come to mind. I think more in general, what really gives me a pet peeve, and I might get some backlash for this, is when hospitals post something that comes from a third-party marketing tool, and you can see the logo and that company's stuff on that post, and it's posting that as the hospital's own. Like, I understand why I used to do that 100%, but now I'm like, that it drives me crazy because I'm like, no, you could have had the opportunity to post about your own brand, but that's why I'm really passionate about Vet Vibes Media, because we're providing that customized option for you to post easily on your hospital's pages.
Yeah, I think it's a great balance of being like attainable, and you don't have to have so much emphasis into trying to figure it out, but at the same time, it's custom and branded to what you're doing. Yeah. So that's very cool. So again, tell everybody where to go and check it out.
Yeah, so head on over to vetvibesmedia.com/membership to get all that information for our new membership coming out.
Perfect. And then also tell everybody where they can hear you on the podcast, and give a shout out for your podcast too.
Yes. So my podcast is the Veterinary Social Media Podcast, and Brandon, you need to come on, but you can go to my website at heycheyanne.com/podcast to get all the latest episodes there, and subscribe and join me there, because we get real nerdy about social media and give you practical tips that you can use to make your time with social media a lot more efficient.
Excellent. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time and sharing all your knowledge. So I appreciate it. And be sure to check out Vet Vibes, everybody. And we'll see you on the next episode.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. Thanks.